to the Wildline podcast. I'm your host, Dan. I have Chris with me as always. Say hello.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me again, Dan. And wow, what a week we have had with officially, I think, is this week 4 of this mess? It's been a month?
Yeah, it's
no
been
box
at least
office?
a month. Yeah, it has been a month. And I don't know. It's just getting weirder and weirder. AMC is going to file for bankruptcy. So the biggest movie theater out there is going to go essentially, they're not going to go out of business, but they're going to be basically taken over and probably close down a ton of their movie theaters. And we'll see with if Regal can survive. I don't know if they can. Marcus out of Wisconsin, where we grew up, they're in trouble. Cinemark's in trouble. So we'll see who survives the quarantine downturn here. I don't think they're all going to make it. I think we're going to see a huge reduction in the number of theaters that are around. I just hope that my theater doesn't go away. That's all I hope for. Well, what else is going on with releases? I think you got some updates for us there.
Yeah, well, I think perhaps we should real quick do a update since I just got done paying $20 to watch Trolls World Tour with my family on my son's 8th birthday.
Oh, God.
And,
congratulations.
Yeah, it took about 3.5 minutes for my wife to look at me and lean over and say, at least we didn't have to see this on the big screen. So, silver linings, folks.
Yeah.
It's a lot. There are too many colors. And
what platform did you guys rent on? I'm always interested in platforms.
Yeah, we did Prime Video just because that's the first one that comes up on the Fire Stick.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Terrible UI. Probably the worst UI of any
really
platform
is.
out there. It's just like
especially
horrific.
for kids. There's every other platform has like a kids section, or you can have like a kids profile that makes it way easier. But like my kids, whenever they want to watch something on Prime Video, they have to like skip past like Bosch and stuff like that to get to it.
It's gross.
It's so stupid.
It's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of like an old library catalog system.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's just like just gross and like it seems like it's like DOS to search anything. But how was the movie good or bad? What did you think about it overall? I mean, apparently it's bad, right?
Oh yeah, it's pretty wretched. I mean, my kids enjoyed it, but like they will enjoy anything with bright colors, for the most part. They're not too discerning at this age. But it's also like it's not funny. Like there's jokes, but I mean, I think I laughed once. I think my kids laughed a couple times, and I think my wife laughed once as well.
God, that's bad.
I mean, the best thing you can say for it is like they got the right music talent involved, since it's apparently now like a music-centric franchise. It was fun to see George Clinton voice and sing a character. As awful as it was, but Mary J. Blige, Anderson .Paak, like there's some pretty good names in there. But I don't think it was worth it. It was not worth the $20 drop.
$20 is a lot of money.
It is for 48 hours.
Yeah, and especially for like an animation film. Yeah. I don't know why I said that. I don't know why $20 is worth less for like the Invisible Man, which is also $20 now. It just seems kind of like, I don't know.
I at least feel like with animation, at least having kids, like they're gonna watch it tomorrow. Like we have it for 48 hours, and they're gonna see it
get the
at least twice.
Maximum utility out of it. I see.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you're not gonna do it again, though, huh?
I don't think so. I mean, it was a confluence of he had been really looking forward to his birthday, and having to do it in quarantine definitely.
Yeah,
kind of made it hard. And so like the one salvageable thing is like, okay, well, I can at least like pretend like we turned all the lights off, and we did it on our big TV in the basement.
Oh,
and so
that sounds like fun.
It's kind of like going out to the movies as close as you can get while quarantined. And he was super excited about it. So and like I'm not gonna begrudge him that on his birthday just because it's a ridiculous price point for an obnoxious movie.
$20, huh? I don't know. Are there any more that are coming out for $20? I haven't seen.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, what do you got?
Well, not $20 so much, but I guess one of the biggest things that came out this week since we last casted, that was mentioned briefly in the episode last week, is that Artemis Fowl officially has a release date for Disney Plus.
Oh
Of,
yeah.
June 12th.
Okay. June
So
12th.
June 12th, no $20 price point, and it seems like Disney Plus is pretty handily just crunching those numbers.
I don't trust anybody crunching those numbers, because I can never understand
yeah, it's
like with
it's all
Netflix or Prime, any of that stuff. It's like, how do you actually quantify any of this?
it's all unreliable.
You'd have-
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, even with the studio stuff, and we'll talk about Deadline's most profitable stuff, there is a balance sheet that you can look at, like money in, money out per property. Like for stuff
Right.
like this on Disney streaming, you're like, I don't know, maybe someone's going to sign up because of this, or not churn, whatever they call it.
Right.
But it's bizarre. But that's kind of that's a big deal that it's premiering on Disney Plus. That's kind of a step forward for the whole streaming universe.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know too much about the $20 price points, but let's talk about the other films that have gotten new release dates. The other big news that came out, I think, on Monday was, which was before our episode was released, but after we had recorded it. Soul, Disney and Pixar's big new movie, supposed to be much better than Onward, getting way more hype, is now officially coming out on November 20th.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so that is it. That is also then, because they're choosing November 20th, bumping the other Disney non-Pixar animated film, Raya and the Last Dragon.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so that's getting moved to spring of 2021 with so much other crap. So
yeah, it's going to be a traffic jam. And I think
big
Soul
time.
is going to be massive. I feel like
Yes.
Soul is going to be. What was it originally? June?
It was supposed to be June, yes.
June would have been perfect for that movie too.
Mhm.
But it's November, so it'll get holiday. It'll open to 40 and end up doing 12x or something
Yes.
crazy. I guess if movie theaters still are open, then I don't know.
Yeah, man. I don't know. This will be weird.
The White House did say that movie theaters, I believe, are part of a phased reopening. And I'm trying to find the exact wording, but it essentially says they want movie theaters to open before schools. So it's a 3-phase opening thing. The first is more businesses, and I think the second is bigger events like movie theaters, and the third is schools. I don't know how that makes any sense, but apparently movie theaters might be open in the next couple of
Interesting.
months. So, but that's Trump
yeah.
talking, so I don't know what the hell that means. He's
Yes.
probably just spitballing as he's talking, per usual.
Absolutely. I think that similar to we were saying, it's completely unreliable what the streaming services are up to, and as far as subscriber numbers. I think it's also pretty unclear what the movie theaters will do. And I feel like it's going to be, I don't know, you tell me if you agree, there's going to be one theater or one chain that pulls the trigger first, and then that's just going to be a domino effect.
100%. And I think it'll probably be, my guess is it'll probably be AMC, just because they need the cash coming in now. They're in I think they have $11 billion in debt. They're just in a really horrific financial situation. And if they don't have reoccurring revenue coming in very fast, very soon, they're done as a company.
Yep.
So, and they're the biggest movie theater chain in the US and Canada. So my guess is they'll pull the trigger first, and they'll probably do a 30% capacity. Hey, a third of the theater, you can come in, that's it. And then slowly ramp up 50%, 60%, and eventually get back to normal. But I don't think normal is going to happen for movie theaters until a year from now, to be honest with you.
Nope.
I just don't see it happening anytime soon.
Yes.
Any other release date shuffle going on?
So there is now an official new release date for Quiet Place Part 2. I think we were talking last week that we were wondering if they were going to do the streaming gamble for that one. But no, they're postponing that. Paramount's going to put it out September 4th officially now.
They're going to have to move that again.
Yep. That
there's no
seems
way.
too soon.
Way too soon.
Speaking of too soon, the SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run, which we haven't discussed yet here on the show, but in terms of the animated, it's movies, I was at least thinking that they would do streaming for that one, but no, that was originally to be released on May 22nd, and then they pretty quickly in the beginning of all this release date shuffle business moved it to July 31, but now it has been moved to August 7th, which just seems like why are they put yeah, what's Paramount thinking there? I don't know.
I think they're probably there's a lot of risk management going on where it's essentially just like, okay, like we're going to say it's going to open August 7th. If it doesn't open August 7th, who cares? Right. But if we can have the opportunity to get an open date and be one of the first movies back, we'll make a lot of cash because people want to go out and see movies. That would be my guess. But August seems way too early for anything like that. Although, according to the protests that are going on, everything's back to normal. Everything's fine.
Centralized somehow in our hometown of Brookfield, Wisconsin.
So we're from a tiny, I guess it's not tiny, but a small suburb outside Milwaukee.
Yeah.
That is just like the plainest kind of Mayberry-ish place in the world. And the massive protests to reopen Wisconsin, liberate Wisconsin, as they say. So once those people, a third of them will die. I don't know if movie theaters are gonna I don't know how they're gonna. That's Marcus's flagship theaters in Brookfield,
right?
So it's gonna be kind of weird. I don't know how that's gonna play out.
It's gonna be weird.
Any more shuffles out there?
Yes, I'm finding more as I go into the Google News search results. Minions: The Rise of Gru is officially now coming out in 2021, originally set for a July 2020 release.
Yeah.
Sing 2 has been postponed from
I didn't know they were doing a Sing 2. Wow.
Yep, to December 22nd, 2021. So now that's a Christmas release along with
generally
Top Gun.
Unfortunate.
I know. Oh my God. And then this one I'm actually kind of excited about. Anton Fuqua's new sci-fi action film starring Mark Wahlberg and Chiwetel Ejiofor called Infinite has been rescheduled from August 7th to May 28th.
August 7th. It was already in the gutter.
I know.
Which makes you even more excited about what's in this film. They wouldn't want to put it out on like a marquee weekend.
Yeah. And I mean, that it's just interesting that you've got SpongeBob moving to August 7th, and then that's making other studios then start thinking like, oh, I don't think things are going to be big enough on August 7th. Let's move it to May. And that's the other thing is like how much of this is damage control, how much of this is just like frantically moving chess pieces and hoping for the best.
Well, I think the ones that are closer are just frantic, like the SpongeBob and Quiet Place 2. That's frantic because Quiet Place 2 was supposed to open. What was it? Was it March or was it? It was the end of March, wasn't it?
Yeah,
like March 20th.
Last weekend of March. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like I think for them they have this thing. It's in the can. It's ready to go. The P&A has already been spent. They've already spent all the advertising budget for it, probably, or most of it at least.
That's true.
And
Good point.
So they need to get this thing out and out the door, or you just say screw it. I mean, you could put it on VOD, premium VOD for like $20. I think if you put it on 30, I would love to see the numbers behind that. Yes, if you put it out for $30 and see if it, but I think a lot of it's just franticness, and I don't think they're committed to anything.
No,
because they might not even be in business. They don't even know. They can't pay their employees. So
yep, have you heard the log line for this movie Infinite with Mark Wahlberg?
No. What is it?
Oh my gosh,
I'm buckled in.
Okay,
tell me.
It's based off a novel I never heard of called The Reincarnationist Papers, which is a mouthful, so I'm glad they gave it a new title. Mark Wahlberg plays a self-medicated, near-suicidal man haunted by having skills he never learned and visions of places he never visited. He's rescued by a group called Infinites, who unlock his past life memories in hopes he can thwart a member of the group with a terrible plan for humanity.
This sounds awesome.
I know, it's like the Buddhist Matrix.
Yeah, it just sounds completely stupid and makes no sense, but also sounds really fun.
Yeah, exactly. So May 28th for that one. And I think that brings me to the end of my research, unless we want to get into the weeds about Mission Impossible 7, but that's probably just me.
Last Mission Impossible is amazing. Okay, so that's the movie release shuffle. Let's talk a little bit of Deadline Most Profitable. They did a big update this week to their 2019 most profitable film list. We're in the top 20. So let's walk through all of those and see what were the most successful movies last year. at the box office. Coming in at number 20 was The Addams Family, which when I was talking about this movie in the podcast, I just could never make heads or tails of what was happening with it. I didn't get why it was successful at all, but it was very successful. So $40 million production budget on this. It ended up doing 203 worldwide, 100 here in the US and Canada, for a profit of $76 million. I feel like you have a better take on this film than I do, because I just don't, for some reason, it doesn't compute to me like who's into this and why they're into it and who's showing up.
It honestly didn't for me either. I was so confused when I saw the trailer for this. It's gaudy, it's ugly, it's just really like third rate. Like,
yeah,
if you thought like Hotel Transylvania was third rate, like this just looks like worse than that. I don't get it. But like they have like a really good cast, like Charlize Theron as Morticia and Oscar Isaac as Gomez.
Wonderful.
Like, it's so bizarre. And actually we speaking of renting on VOD, we did that. We missed it in the movie theaters. So
yeah.
We paid our $3.99 penance and let the kids choose it for Friday night family movie night.
And how was it?
It's if you can get past how just like awful it looks, it's actually not bad. It's I mean, the voice cast is just fun to listen to. There's a genuine like bust out laughing moment for the whole family, and while mostly still forgettable, like a lot of these, what studio is this from? Even MGM United Artists, like
it's a weird mixture of distribution, I think.
Right. And so like it has no distinct like house style that maybe that's part of the reason it just feels like so gross to look at, because our eyes aren't trained to it like we are with so many other studios, even the bad ones like Illumination.
We'll get to them in a bit.
Yeah, we will. But yeah, I mean, I guess I still don't get why it made money, but like they clearly did their homework with P&A, because they tapped into it and it's made it on Deadline's list. Like, it's not an amazing hit, but I don't know. Would you call this a double?
Yeah, I definitely call this a double, standing double even.
Okay.
And I think it's interesting. I think it's the same director as Sausage Party, I think.
Oh yeah, you're right. What the heck?
And so, he cut his teeth doing that train wreck of a film, which I think is basically unwatchable. Even though it's like directly targeted at me, it's just an abomination of a film. It's a very solid hit, and I think the biggest surprise to me about why it was a solid hit is the IP and like the narrative universe of the Addams Family seems so dated. Yep. And apparently, I didn't know this, but it traces back to a New Yorker cartoon. Did you know this?
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's the origin of the Addams Family. And obviously it had the TV show and that kind of stuff, but I just didn't get the IP, but apparently it connects with people and people showed up. So we are getting a sequel. It's on slate for March 2021, I believe, right now, or maybe sometime in 2021 weird. We're getting a sequel. But yeah, so that's in the top 20 of the most profitable films of 2019. Moving on to number 19 on the list, 1917 did $77 million in profit just to edge out the Addams Family. This one cost $100 million to make. Domestically here, it did 160. Total global was 375. So that gives it a profit once you do revenue and cost of $77 million. Word on that, though, when Deadline does this, they do sort of plan out what its digital sort of release is going to look like, what the bigger stars, like in this case Sam Mendes, is getting a participation of like $20 million for this film. So that they're putting that all into these calculations. So they get a total revenue of $367 million, total cost of $290. Cost is mostly production budget, participations, and then prints and advertising budget, and then whatever it would cost to sort of do a digital release for it. So $77 million in profit. I think this is a little bit, I don't know if you'd call it a surprise, because it came out so late in the year and had that really strange Golden Globe win. And then everybody thought it was a shoe-in for Best Picture, and then Parasite basically like cut out its knees in front of it. I mean, it was like it was a strange film that was released way too late in the season, but somehow was super successful. And I think if they've had released this earlier in the year, it would have done actually much better than this financially. Financially, obviously, it's a top 20 profitable film, but I think it was good enough and had enough like zeitgeist buzz that it could have easily pushed to $100 million profit if it had a longer time. But it had a short season because it was an awards film. The Oscars were there. It released wide after the Golden Globes. So it didn't really have a long season to make a lot of cash in that post-holiday season. So I don't know. What do you think about this film overall, 1917?
Well, you're right. It is a weird one, even though on the surface it looks like a very like traditional Oscar war movie, right?
Yeah.
But it's bizarre in that you basically have it doesn't have a script, right? It's just literally guy delivers message and you just follow him. It's more of a video game than a movie, in my humble opinion. But in addition to that, it's like also had the bizarre pairing with Midway, which came out on Veterans Day, right?
Yeah.
And like I mean, I agree with you. I think if it had come out sooner, like if for whatever reason, like, you know, they could have put out a hit on Roland Emmerich and just avoided Midway coming out, then yeah, just release this on Veterans Day and it would have swept even more, right? But
God, yeah.
I think there was just it was a crowded field, to be honest, and I think it's pretty lucky it got what it did. And
yeah.
I
mean, it wasn't
hearing,
even finished. It wasn't even finished until November, is what I heard.
That's insane. Well, yeah, that's the other, and there are a few shots in particular where, now that you say that, it makes a lot of sense. There's some VFX shots that were just like, huh? Could you spend a little more time on that if the whole point is to make it look cool, right?
Oscar-worthy cinematography. Oscar-worthy.
I mean, Deakins is a genius. He was clearly just like running circles around everybody on that set. But yeah, I don't know, man. This is. I think people are going to forget about this movie, to be honest.
Oh, 100%. I've already forgotten about it. Number 18 on the most profitable movie list of 2019 from Deadline is Knives Out. I think a podcast favorite, right? Everybody loves this movie.
Oh, God.
Only $40 million to produce this thing. Ends up doing $312 global for a total profit of $83 million. To me, this was like a guaranteed hit the moment I saw the trailer drop, whenever it was, probably like August, September. It felt like a holiday movie. It felt like a 4-quad movie. It ended up doing like a 6x multiplier too. So like just had those holiday legs that never stopped. Did you think this was going to be a hit no matter what, or are you kind of skeptical about it?
I could have not had predicted what you did. It seemed to me like it was a Rian Johnson movie a la Brothers Bloom or something like that, where I thought it was going to be, it was going to be pretty niche. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, when I actually saw the real thing, I think the movie itself is actually way different than what the trailer purports it to be. It's got the Trojan horse protagonist, where I went in there not knowing much about it besides what I saw in the trailer, and like you have this actually, really cool design of an ensemble, but actually the protagonist is this, young Hispanic up and coming actress. And it was so cleverly done that it could not have made me happier to like sit and watch it, and to have so many other people there, and it not being like an art house release with like 20 people in the crowd.
Yeah. It was one of those movies like the thing that kept coming up, especially on like film Twitter or whatever, was that like you could take your parents to this, like your 70-year-old parents, and like they're gonna go and love this. And it goes to show you, I think it was like one of the, I don't know how many original IPs we have in this top 20 list, but it's definitely one of few. And the script is just wonderful. I mean, and that just goes to show you, yeah, you have all the actors, you have a great direction here, but the script was so tight and it works so well. By the time you get to the end of it, you just want to see it again. And it's just one of those movies. So I think it was a great hit for, I guess the sequel is going to come out with Daniel Craig. What is his character's name?
Benoit Blanc.
Yes, Benoit Blanc. I believe he's the center of the new movie, which I think makes sense. It's going to be a little bit of a post-Bond franchise for him. So that was 18 on list. 17 was Hobbs and Shaw, a movie I hate to talk about. I don't know why. $200 million production budget. Did $759 worldwide. 759, only 173 in the US. It did more money just in China alone, did $200 million in China. Obviously, Fast and the Furious, it's definitely a foreign focused movie. It is not a US, Canada release, really. This went on to make $84 million in profit is what Deadline projects for this. This one's definitely, I would say, and I said this a lot when we were doing this on the weekly basis, definitely underperformance. For a Fast and the Furious series to come out with those two stars out center and in front there, you would guess at least $800 million global. I would have said closer to 900 to a billion. And it seemed like a cash in ultimately. And it just didn't seem like it was an important side story to tell, but I don't think it's going to have much of an effect on the Fast and the Furious take of the new one that's coming up. I think it's the mainline story. This is kind of a side. I haven't seen this one. Have you seen this one at all?
I've never seen any of them.
Oh yeah, you haven't seen a single one. Yeah. You should really just take a jaunt with Hobbs and Shaw. Just spend $6 on the VOD and just sort of see what it's like. It looks terrible.
It does. It just looks boring.
It's stupid, boring. But again, it's not for us.
Exactly.
It's for the Chinese audience, Russian
it
audience.
It wouldn't even be on this list if it was a domestic only release, right?
No, not even close.
Yeah. So like, it feels. I think that there's a part of me. My wife and I were just talking about the subtle subtext of Trolls World Tour and how it's kind of an anti-globalization film, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, a little bit. And this it kind of makes me sad because like on the one hand, like globalization has brought us like Parasite to be Best Picture winner, and that's amazing. But it's a double-edged sword. You also have to deal with so much of Hollywood being focused on these overseas mindless action movies that usually I love myself a good mindless action movie, but like this is mindless to the point where like they're not even. It's just like they're phoning it in.
Well, there's no winks and nods for an American audience. There's no irony. It's just straightforward because the Chinese audience is not going to get the comedic sort of undertones to it.
Exactly.
So it's really just smash, smash, boom, boom. And that's kind of what they're looking for, I think. So next on the list was a kind of a crazy performance, Downton Abbey. The film follow-up to the beloved TV series. $20 million production budget on this, ended up doing $194 million with a $31 million opening weekend here domestically. It ended up doing just shy of $100 million in the US total. This one had a projected profit of $88 million. I did not see this one coming at all. This was old people catnip, and they showed up in droves to this. Did you think that this was going to do pretty well? Were you a Downton Abbey kind of viewer at all?
I haven't seen a single episode.
Either have I.
Which is interesting though, because for some reason, just like I think hearing about you talk about it on the podcast and just it being back in the ether, like I was like, oh no, I don't want to try Downton Abbey still. But you know what I would like to finally see is Gosford Park, which
classic,
is the precursor to the Downton Abbey style and characters, the same co-writer with Robert Altman, and like. So I watched that, and actually it was very good, but I cannot imagine this being like to the point where it causes a frenzy, especially because one of the central kind of points of Gosford Park was that it had such like an easy way to wrap it up, and to have this idea of this ongoing drama between these kinds of characters feels kind of I don't know, feels like why. The same reason where I was kind of wondering at some point in time, to use a reference point that is common between the two of us, like when we heard that there was going to be a Breaking Bad movie, there was brief but intense fanboy discussion about would they put this on the big screen, even if just for like a special event, like a Fandango thing, but like I don't know if that would have worked. I don't know how much money that would have made if that would really been. Such a mainstay in the theater, and like you said, it basically comes down to old people where they don't care about seeing it opening weekend necessarily, but they definitely want a reason to get out of the house for a night.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it was the marketing play here. They did a
Mm-hmm.
very good job of creating that frenzy way up front. And you know what's mind blowing about a movie like Downton Abbey is the $20 million production budget, which is next to nothing. And this is done
Mm-hmm.
by I think an offshoot of NBC Universal, their international production arm, did this and released it via Focus Features, which is under that umbrella. $20 million production budget, a much higher P&A, probably. I think Deadline has it as like 60 or something like that. But total costs for this were $129 million, makes a profit of $88 million, versus Hobbs and Shaw just above it on the list, or below it, I should say, made $4 million less in profit, but it cost $200 million to make, 10x the amount of production budget as a Downton Abbey. It kind of goes to show you that like you can still hit a home run on a tiny ass budget, and we'll get to another one further down the list. If you do everything right, you have the right marketing budget, you don't need to spend $150 million to make almost $100 million in profit. You just don't have to. So the business is still kind of wide open in that sense. It's not closed off to just like the big players. So if you have the right movie and the right audience and the right marketing campaign, you can still hit the grand salami, as they say. Next on the list is John Wick Chapter 3. This one did $326 million worldwide, 171 here in the US and Canada on a production budget of $75 million. Deadline has it at $89 million in profit, just a little bit over Downton Abbey. This one, not a surprise to me at all. This whole series has been one sort of hit movie after another. Here's the third. I believe it did like over 60% more global than the second one. I thought the second one was pretty big. I mean, the first one was kind of a little bit of a cult film, I would say, like a little bit. And it got really a second life on VOD, and then especially when it hit HBO, the first John Wick really exploded. And now you have this international sort of blockbuster movie. And I had thought that the third one here might be the last in the series, but it was so popular that the fourth one is coming, I believe, maybe 2021, but probably 2022. I'm not sure. In the overall John Wick series, what do you think of it? I mean, it seems kind of like an interesting second life for Keanu Reeves as an action star.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I mean, it's wonderful, really. I mean, this is a guy where he basically, had this big splash with Bill and Ted, and then his stardom cemented with Speed and The Matrix. But then like somewhere around Matrix Reloaded, maybe even before that, because he did put some, crappy movies out in the 90s too, like Johnny Mnemonic, where it was like, it was a constant like joke between film fans of like, people really loved his movies, but like it was always a question of, wait, but can he act? Like you didn't really know for sure until you saw him in something good. And so when John Wick comes along, it's like, it's so many elements combined of what he's been so good at. It's like the uber seriousness of his characters in Speed and The Matrix, combined with, like you were just saying, like that irony, that wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that maybe stems more from him like leaning into his more comedic side, which is actually, really an important side of him. And
Absolutely.
And they're playing it in combination now with like him as this, mature, retired super assassin. And not only that, but like to build it in this landscape, this world, the cinematic universe almost, where it's so distinct and it's so ridiculous. And it knows how to play that hand without it ever like crumbling on one side or the other. It never crosses the absurdity to the line of it just being trash. And it's just so super stylized that you can never even necessarily say that it's like lost in the pit of mindless action movies either. It's such a beautiful kind of counter punch to the whole idea of franchise movies can't be creative, and like no, they just keep these guys know what they're doing. I think a big part of it is Chad Stahelski, the director of these movies, is a former stuntman, and so like he knows exactly the kind of worlds he wants to create, and in combination with Keanu's just like overt sensibilities as both a comedic and action star, it just works so well. And I could not have imagined that it would spawn two movies that would just get
No.
progressively and more
No.
financially successful. But I'm here
Yeah.
for it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's quite it definitely has a distinct voice and it has that delicate balance. It just works.
Mhm.
Although I'm gonna have to say, I love the first one. I did not like the second or third ones all that much. They're fine.
Oh.
They're fine, but there's something very pure about the first one.
Well, yeah.
That by the second one, it's like, oh, okay, I get it. The 5 minutes sort of gun battle wrestle thing that happens every 5 minutes. Okay, cool. There's something special about the first one, but it doesn't matter because people love John Wick now, and it's like an international super hit. So
Right.
we're gonna get a lot more as long as Keanu wants to do them. They're gonna do them. Next on the list, a movie I hate and I don't want to talk about, The Secret Life of Pets 2.
At least you don't have to watch it once a month.
Oh, I couldn't even imagine. $80 million production budget. This thing did 430 worldwide, but that's only about half of what the first one did. 158 here domestically. Deadline has it as a profit of 118. I believe the last one had a profit like $300 million. I gotta look it up on my list.
Oh my God.
So this was like in like Deadline's write up 2 was like very overtly negative about this film and just sort of like it sucks, it did terrible, blah blah. I get that, but like it also made $100 million in profit. And you compare it to the other films on the list, a lot of these would be considered massive wins. Downton Abbey, Knives Out, John Wick 3, definitely. So like on the one hand, yeah, it's a huge underperformance, but it still prints money. And are we going to get a third one? My guess is probably yes. If you're making $100 million in pure profit, you're gonna make another product. So what's the kids' verdict on this movie? Do they like this? It's same cinema score as the first one, A-. So.
Yeah, I mean it's what it is. I mean, I just mentioned how like Illumination, even though they're begrudgingly a rising star, and like I'm slowly getting used to their house style, it still is just it's ugly. It's not like
it's tier 2.
But it's not even like the gaudy ugliness of the Trolls movies. It's also bland. I mean, I remember my biggest complaint about the first one when I saw it in the theaters with my kids was like, this is just Oliver and Company recycled. And of all the Disney movies to rip off, like the one with a Billy Joel soundtrack that underperformed at the box office, and yet it just crushed it. It was in the theaters forever. I mean, it's nuts. I don't know. I'm curious though from your perspective, because I as a now special recurring guest, but previously avid listener, I remember you just dissing this movie every week, and
every week
I think you kept doing the thing where you were like, are we gonna see another one? Probably not. So why do you think now, like, what is it about like finding it on the Deadline list and like seeing how much profit it made?
So with the first one, it was clear that like the movie was terrible, right? It was lowest common denominator, like trash. And you could see that from the trailers. You could see it just was not a well-made product. But when it does well like that, and it did like whatever it did, $800 million, we're like, there's going to be a sequel. Like, know that the studio can't say no to this. With the second one, the reason why I guess in my mind with the studio and how they think about things, a disappointment is a disappointment. Yeah. Are we going to see another Hobbs and Shaw spinoff movie? Absolutely not. It's not going to happen.
No.
Are we going to see Secret Life of Pets 2? The reason I say probably yes is when the financials you don't know up front, right? And when you see it kind of laid out here by Deadline, you're like, oh, okay, $100 million in profit. What's the production budget here? $80 million. Are they going to take another risk on this and make one for, let's say, 60 next time? They will. They're going to, and they're going to like revise what they did on the first one or the second one where it didn't really hit. And they're going to try and equal this one and maybe make like 20 to 30% more on a lower marketing budget and production budget. And it's going to be a win. I don't know.
Yeah,
when I see the $100 million profit, it's just sort of like there's not a lot of risk in these movies. Right. Because animation films, if they're like of a certain level, are going to get people to show up as long as they have an open release schedule and they're not going up against a Disney film. There's just a set in family audience for this stuff. And if it has to do
Yeah.
with dogs and pets, like people are gonna show up, right?
Yeah, and I mean it's easy to cut corners on the cast. One thing that
Easily.
I thought was interesting, and I don't know if you ever mentioned this on the show, but I do kind of in a Schadenfreude kind of way enjoy it every time my kids do decide to watch it. Is they just like without mentioning it to anybody swapped Louis C.K. out for Patton Oswalt as the protagonist.
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah.
It's, oh my god! It
Patton
And
Oswalt,
so-
love him.
yeah, so like you get Patton Oswalt and Eric Stone Street. Like, I mean, Patton Oswalt does so much voiceover work. Like, I'm sure he's pretty reasonable, and Eric Stone Street
Yeah.
can't be that much money. So just like, and get Kevin
Yeah.
Hart to play the bunny for one day, and yeah, you could probably easily make it for half the budget that they put into the second one.
Yeah, well, here's what I see. Third one comes out, does a little bit, maybe less profit, maybe like $100 million in profit, and then it's like straight to streaming stuff would be my guess.
Yeah.
Because then you got the IP and like narrative universe laid out to cash in on the streamers.
So what I'm curious about, actually, I mean, I don't know if you've mentioned Peacock at all yet, but if Universal and Illumination get in on that could be a interesting way to try to compete
What
with
is-
Disney
What
Plus.
is that launching? I thought it was launching
I
in
don't-
May, wasn't it? They pushed it
Yeah,
back?
I don't know. Maybe they're pushing it back because of COVID.
So is the HBO one, which I'm dying to
Mhm.
get because it's gonna
HBO
have-
Max.
Yeah, dude, it's such a lame 1995 name, but I love it because it's all coming back to the 90s.
Right.
It's like Pepsi Clear all over again. Okay, so last on the list on the updated ones is Us, a huge horror film from Jordan Peele. Only cost $20 million to make. This thing did 255 worldwide. A big chunk of that, of course, was domestic. $175 million domestic. Deadline has this as a profit of $119 million. This was Blumhouse, wasn't it? Blumhouse
Yeah.
Universal. I'm trying to I sort of remember that being the case. They just have the formula down. They've got Jason Blum who knows how to do it. They have Universal doing distribution, who knows how to like take these films and really prop them up. This thing had that huge Christmas trailer release where it got like 100 million views in 24 hours. And as you have the artistic director Jordan Peele just going for it. This is definitely, I think, of the movies so far on this list, I would call it the most artistically rich film. Would you agree with that statement? Yeah. Okay. Good.
Oh yeah, pretty easily. I mean, I love Knives Out. I love it, but like,
It's
Us,
not this.
It's amazing that what Us did, not only because it was so hyped, arguably overhyped after the massive success of Get Out, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that it like had something so interesting to say that was still, somewhat, had a connective tissue to Get Out, but then like just completely like, I don't know. I am so excited to see where Jordan Peele goes next with this. And I think that that's like something that is not seen. Like I had freshmen in my high school classes that were like talking about Jordan Peele as like an auteur. And
That's
it's
amazing. I
like
love that.
Nobody else has been able to do that since, I don't know, since when?
And the guy who got, had this break essentially from a comedic sketch show on
Right.
Comedy Central. Like it just sort of like, wait, what happened? So just an amazing performance. And I think that like, I don't know what he's up to next. I'm sure he's got another movie probably through Blumhouse or maybe not. This is higher end Blumhouse too. A $20 million production budget from them is on the higher end. To give you an example, I believe Invisible Man, I can't remember off the top of my head what the production budget was, but it was under 10 million, I think. I think it was, but it's cheaper. Most of their stuff's about $5 million. That's their sort of line in the saying. Get Out was 4.5 million. Get Out, 4.5 million production budget, ended up making just about equal what this movie did, almost identical what it did domestic and global. So Blumhouse gave him a little bit more money, and he came through, and they have the model down. And I think they have sort of, in a weird way, I always compare Blumhouse and Blumhouse Productions to MCU, and having a house model, a sort of cookie cutter studio system thing that works. And it's just on the other end of the spectrum, where MCU will pump $200 million into a massive movie and make $300 million in profit. Blumhouse will pump $20 million into a movie and make $100 million in profit. So they both have their ways of winning at this game. But yeah, it's I'm trying to like think about what movie's gonna be in the top 10 here. I can't even think of anything off the top of my head. I wonder if Star Wars, does that count?
Yeah,
Is that 2019?
that'll be in there.
Oh God, what a disaster.
I mean, yeah. It's
So they'll keep updating this list throughout the week, and we'll probably do the final, maybe the final top 10 next week.
Did you? Maybe you made this your notes before the new one came out. Number 12 came out earlier today.
Oh, what is it? What is it?
How to Train Your Dragon 3.
Oh, I did miss that one.
I know how you love talking about animated movies, but
oh God, I hate this. Although I will say this about How to Train Your Dragon. I saw the original in 2010. I believe I was either like underemployed or like unemployed, one of the two. And I just went to go see the first one, and I loved it. I thought it was great.
The first one's very good. Yes.
Yeah. And so what did this one do? 160 domestic. A global is 521, which is pretty high for a movie like this. So they have a net profit of $130 million. That is a great performance. And again, in the podcast, I don't know I can't read animation films because I'm sort of like, this is doing well, I think. And then it's like, are we going to have another one? Is always the question I throw out there. And I think I probably said no on this one. Or at least they're going to take a break for a few years. But like, look, if you're making $140 million, why not keep doing it?
Yeah, I don't know. I think one of the things that sets the How to Train Your Dragon series off from the other ones, and I'm not a huge fan of it. Like, I do agree the first one was done very well. I think that it has like a sincerity to it that a lot of these other, especially non-Disney, non-Pixar movies have. That makes it kind of special. I think that you have a certain kind of very specific kid that this movie's aimed at. It's like, the serious kid that loves fantasy shit, right? Yeah. And I think that, I don't know. I mean, yes, out of all the animated movies that we've had to talk about on this episode, this is probably the one I'm mad at the least. There is still something where it's like, I would have liked to have seen what it could have looked like if it didn't have to follow that Universal DreamWorks house style, where with like the big noses and the soft shading. Yeah,
it looked bland to me. It looked kind of tired, but apparently I'm in the minority there because people showed up for this.
Yep.
All right, that's it for the most profitable. Let's do a quick jaunt in the time machine.
Let's do it.
Let's head back to 2015. This weekend, April 17th is the weekend. This was, and I picked this one just because I want to talk about Fast and Furious more because you hate those movies. So number one this weekend, back in April 2015, 5 years ago. Now we're in the time machine, folks. $29 million in its third weekend. Furious 7. Which, I had to go back and relook at this one and be like, wait, which one is this? Is this the one with Paul Walker dead? Does he die in this? I think he is.
Gosh, I don't know.
It's the most successful Fast and the Furious movie. It did $1.5 billion worldwide. Did $147 million opening weekend. We're tracking its third weekend here at $29 million. And again, I feel like we talk about this series a lot. I don't know why I talk about it a lot. I think it's fascinating. Well, number one, they have like a movie every year, so that's why I talk about it all the time. Two, I think it's an interesting series to look at just because of, I think you knew of the movies when it came out, especially the original. It was kind of like a small hit, and very much almost kind of like if you look back at the first Fast and Furious, it's like a period piece. Like that movie could only have been made in those years, which I guess was like what, late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah,
late 90s.
I think that it's such a weird
2001. Wow.
Yeah, and I was working at the movie theater at that time. I think we were seniors in high school.
Yep.
And when that came out, and like everybody was just like, "Oh, another dumb action movie." Like it had been kind of at the point where it was run of the mill. And then when all of a sudden just people started coming in droves to see it, I remember feeling like such a whirlwind. Like why this movie? Why this one out of all like the bland action movies that have come out recently? But they tapped into something, man.
It's weird too because I saw it opening night, Friday night at Capitol Cinemas. I was cheating on you, and it was insane. Like every seat was taken. The crowd was like yelling at people. Right? It was like a vibe where I felt like fights were gonna break out. And this is like Sticksville, Wisconsin. Like this is not a place where fights just break out randomly. It's very quiet. And like, I remember coming out of the movie theater, packed parking lot, someone squeals their tires in front, and then a cop car immediately pulls them over. And I was like, this is the perfect Fast and the Furious experience. But to go from that, which felt kind of like a smaller, but you said whirlwind, to now it's this global massive franchise of a film that does better overseas than it does in the US now. It's kind of, in, like we always say, not even a US property anymore. And Fast and Furious is probably going to be the high point of the series. I think financially overall, Furious 7. Do you think though it's going to have any sort of cultural long-term impact?
Well, like
this is
you
a new
said,
question I'm thinking.
yeah. Well, like you said, it's so hard to remember which one is which, and yeah, it is the one where Paul Walker died mid-filming, and they had to use his brothers as stand-ins for the
really?
rest
His
of the
bros, huh?
scenes.
God, that's
Yeah.
weird.
But then it turns, it's the most successful. It's the 9th highest grossing film of all time. That's nuts.
That's crazy.
But I mean, I don't know. This is it. It's interesting because I mean, Justin Lin was he both started and then is coming back to it, right? But like to out of all the people to pinch hit for him, James Wan in 2015, like these people know what they're doing. They got
it done. Universal again. Universal just, I don't know what it is about them. They're in a really strong position right now. Is like, I think they're got to be top 3 studios, but they just, you see all these properties like the Blumhouse stuff and the Furious stuff, and they do tons of distribution for other sort of smaller films. They kind of get the business and have for like the last whatever century they've been around.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Furious 7. That was number 1 this weekend, April 2015. Number 2 is the real reason I picked this weekend. Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 on its opening weekend is $23 million. These follow up to the wonderful 2009 Paul Blart Mall Cop, which did 185 worldwide. This one went on to do in 2015 $107 million. I don't know why I find this movie so fascinating, because it's just like both of these movies. It's just like, I can't imagine a stupider film for a dumber audience. And it just like, it's almost like it was concocted in a lab by these very intelligent scientists or something. They're like, what is the stupidest thing we can put on screen that people all over America and Canada are going to go see? Like, and it just seems like this is what they came up with.
Yep.
I don't think I've seen a scene from maybe one of these films. But I think a little bit of this was like lightning in the bottle, because the first one, opened up at 31, closed out at 146. The second one doesn't even do half of that. And it was a little bit late, 6 years later. I don't think sequels for movies like this work at all.
No.
It's like the first one was really dumb, really stupid. And I think people thought they were in on the joke, but they weren't. They're dumb too. And then the second one comes around, and you're sort of like, this is no longer ironically funny for anybody.
Nope.
And so no one shows up. Have you seen any of these films?
No. Is there more than 2? I honestly didn't know there was a second
just
one.
2. I didn't know either. And then I saw this on the list. I was like, oh yeah, I remember the trailers for that back in the day. I can't believe they greenlit a new one. It's just the worst of the worst. But again, these types of movies, this is only 5 years ago. I don't see a movie like this coming out now. I don't see it.
Nope.
Not gonna happen.
Well, yeah, for what reason? And if Happy Madison wants to do it, like, just do it for Netflix and
you're right. It's Netflix. It's an Adam Sandler Netflix movie.
Yep.
Number 3 this weekend, back in April 2015, was Unfriended, also from Universal. Getting some love here. $15.8 million in its opening weekend. This one, what did it close out at? Adjusted $35 million. Worldwide was 64 unadjusted. This thing made 64.4x its production budget, which was only $1 million. But keep in mind, so that stat's kind of a little bit loaded, just because if you have a production budget this low, your marketing budget's going to be massive compared to that.
Yeah.
And so, but it's still, at $64 million, it probably takes home in revenue just about 60 million. There's no way they spent more than 20, $30 million to market this thing. So this definitely, I think it was profitable. Was there another one to this? Wasn't there a follow-up? Yeah, there's a franchise.
Yeah, Unfriended Dark Web.
Mm-hmm. Dark Web. 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So this one, $64 million worldwide. The follow-up was only $16 million worldwide. I remember seeing this. It's not nearly as bad as it could have been.
Yeah, I
It's
actually heard that it's kind of it's not bad for one of these mid 2010s horror movies.
and it's all takes the gimmick about it is, of course, it all takes place on computer screens.
Right.
So it's basically like one big Zoom call, as the entire movie, and it's almost like a little bit like almost like a teleplay. Kind of seems that way. It has that sort of feel. High artistic merit to it. But yeah, it's fine. This is a cash in. This is a fad film. No one's gonna remember this. It's gonna be remembered as, hey, remember that movie where everybody's on the computer? That's basically it.
It might have some life ahead of it as like a curio in the the horror cult.
Right.
Yeah,
I think it's also gonna have a nostalgia play.
Yeah.
Like in 18 years or 20 years or whatever. Okay, so Unfriended was number 3. Number 4 this weekend, back in April 2015, was Home. I don't know anything about this movie. Fox movie, animated,
let me tell you.
DreamWorks. Yeah, tell me about it.
Oh God. So it's Rihanna and Jim Parsons are the voice talent central to the film, which is already just like, okay, no thanks. Love me some Riri, but she can't act. And then Jim Parsons is just so obnoxious throughout all of it. So here's the perhaps the only interesting thing about this movie is that it started being promoted with a 4-minute short film that was shown before Mr. Peabody and Sherman, which we talked about recently on the podcast.
All right, call back.
Yeah, call back. But and this like DreamWorks is just like throwing spaghetti at the wall at this point, because they hadn't, they had Despicable Me, so they were trying to stay afloat for something other than that. But now they got Secret Life of Pets and Trolls, and so like things are okay. But Mr. Peabody and Sherman, like nobody saw, right? And they also put this same 4-minute short film before Rio 2, which was Blue Sky, before there was a disruption between the connection of Blue Sky and DreamWorks. And so then you have basically nobody getting any lead up to this. Like they had banked so much of it on this, and the only reason I remember this is because I have kids, right? And I was taking my 2 and 3-year-old to the movies as much as I could because of various reasons. But it just like they tried so hard to like make this a thing, because so much of the like animated film world is dependent on like previous IPs, or at least some people thought, right?
Yeah.
And so whether you like, I don't know, it seems like and of course there was never any Home 2. It also had this horrible name for a movie about like a little girl that helps an alien return back to their home planet. It's just like, it just fell through the cracks. It's not actually that bad of a kids movie. It's definitely better than a lot of the stuff that DreamWorks and Illumination have put out over the years, but it's just a really like good, I think it's a really good case study. If I have to find things to be interested about when watching these movies over and over again.
Where's the hook? You need the hook.
Yeah. And exactly, that's it. It's like you have to either do it on a reliable IP, or you have to have a really solid marketing play, or something that is familiar enough to belie not having it based on a previous IP, like Secret Life of Pets. So it's really too bad. But it's
expensive too. $130 million to produce this thing.
Well, you
way
get
too much money for this.
You get like one of the biggest paid TV stars and one of the biggest paid pop stars to voice your characters. Like that's so much money to spend on basically nothing.
That's also a bigger question, because it's come up a few times in the podcast about having certain voice actors involved.
Mm-hmm.
How big of a factor do you think that is in the success of one of these films? I mean, do you feel like, I don't know, like, is it like, even looking like Adam's Family and Charlize Theron, she costs a lot of money, I bet.
Right.
And
like,
Oscar Isaac is probably not cheap either.
Right. And like my 7-year-old is the reason that I, pay $4 on Prime Video. And then I'm like, oh, did you know that she won an Oscar in 2003 for playing the first woman serial killer?
2 Days in the Valley? She was so good in 2 Days in the Valley.
But yet I'm constantly telling my kids like, oh yeah, did you know that that's the same actor who plays the voice of? And they're like, I don't give a shit, Dad.
Yeah, they're like, whatever, it's an animated character. I just find that fascinating that the studios shell out for that stuff.
Yep.
Maybe it's like you know what it probably is? It's probably a Hollywood bubble PR move.
Yeah, probably.
Because then you get like stories printed at Deadline and Variety and Hollywood Reporter. Oh, Rihanna's attached to this. Now let's talk about this movie.
Yep.
And it almost like it's like this like kind of feedback loop in the industry. Okay, so that was number 4 back in April 2015. The last one we're going to talk about here is The Longest Ride. And its second weekend did $7 million. I believe this is a Nicholas Spark movie. It involves cowboys and I think a rodeo rider maybe. This thing opened up at 13, did 2.8 legs, so it closed out inflation adjusted at $40 million. Production budget was way too high for a movie like this. You know, $34 million only did 1.9 that worldwide. A couple of problems with movies like this, and one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of them anymore, you got to shoot them for under $20 million. You got to do Blumhouse model. We need Jason Blum from rom-coms is what we need.
Well, this
and
isn't even
no
a com. This is just a rom, right?
It's just a rom. Yeah, you're right. It's just a rom. And there's not a really big international play for these films. And I don't know why. I think a lot of the romance stuff is cultural, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to read the log line just really quickly. Luke is a former champion bull rider looking to make a comeback. Sophia is a college student who's about to embark upon her dream job in New York City's art world. Oh, art versus bull rider, as conflicting paths and ideals test their relationship. Sophia and Luke make an unexpected and fateful connection with Ira, whose memories of his own decades-long romance with his beloved wife deeply inspire the young couple. Oh, I love these little time plays. So it's like they're falling in love. He's talking about his dead wife. All that fun stuff. A real classic romance film for you. I've seen this movie and I actually like it.
What?
Moving on, hopping back into the time machine.
Wait.
To forget that.
What
Yeah,
do you? What? Okay, I've got a number of questions. First and foremost, how is this good? But also, how did they spend? How do they spend $34 million? And I don't know a single actor in here besides Clint Eastwood's son.
Wait, isn't Britt Robertson, whatever her name is?
What is she from Tomorrowland? That's all. What is she?
Yeah,
known
Tomorrowland.
for?
She was in Tomorrowland. She was in that show Girl Boss on Netflix.
This is not a person you spend millions of dollars on.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, number one, I like romance films in general. I like rom-coms a lot and I rewatch them a lot. And this one had a polish to it that I liked. And like the time story and stuff like that, it's fun, it's cool, it's interesting. I don't know.
It's over 2 hours long.
Like,
how do you not cut this below 120?
You're right though. It goes way too long. Like it's
insanity.
The rule for these films is 90 minutes tops. 90 minutes tops. Get in, get out. Make sure they end up together at the end, and that's it. It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
But it's enjoyable. So if you're into that genre, these movies don't get released anymore. This is all streaming, right? This is only 5 years ago, and it's already like ancient history. So go see The Longest Ride. I'm sure it's on Netflix. Okay, let's definitely hop on the time machine and get out of 2015 while we can. April 2000, and I picked this weekend just because I don't think any of these movies could ever get released in today's box office.
Nope.
Number one was U-57 from Universal, 19.5 million. I think I saw this in the movie theater. Submarine film, World War II. Another, we don't get a lot of World War II movies anymore, right? That sort of heyday was the 90s into the early 2000s. The bigger ones recently, like Midway, didn't do very well at all. The one that comes with Allied didn't do anything.
Midway, we were just talking about Midway.
Yeah, Midway. What was the crazy Overlord one? I thought that looked awesome. Sci-fi
Overlord?
World War II.
Oh yeah, no, it is great. It's great.
I gotta see that.
You definitely
that
do.
did terrible.
Yeah.
So back in 2000, a World War II movie was kind of an easy bet. This one did inflation adjusted domestic 130. Worldwide did 127. That's unadjusted, obviously. And so what did it do here? Production budget $62 million. So only did 2.1x. So even now you can see some of the World War II movies kind of like starting to sputter out, it looks like.
Yeah.
Do you remember this movie at all?
Vaguely. I don't think I saw it, which is amazing.
Is Bon Jovi in this?
Yeah, Bon Jovi and Keitel.
Bill Paxton.
What a cast. This seems solid. But what
I
a
remember
terrible
the
title.
trailer though. Yeah, I remember the trailer was awful, and you're like, this is boring.
Yeah.
Because a couple years before we had Saving Private Ryan,
Mm-hmm,
you're sort of like, well, how do you do a World War II movie now? Because like there's like
Right.
masterpiece that's out there that's better than anything else.
Well, and also just like Hunt for Red October. Like, how do you
Exactly.
compete? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's Hunt for October in World War II. That's essentially the tagline.
Mm-hmm.
So that one didn't do very well. Two this weekend back in 2000. God, this is so long ago, 20 years ago. Love and Basketball. This thing did what 8.1 million from New Line. Closed out domestically, adjusted at 46, not that bad. Cost $15 million to make. When you do sort of the adjustments, only 1.8. Its total production budget in a worldwide box office, 0 international, essentially. I think I saw this in the theater, maybe. Basketball movie. I guess, is there a romance to this? There has to be.
It's called Love and Basketball.
But like, I don't know. I don't remember the romance.
No,
I just remember
like,
the basketball.
So this is a Spike Lee production, and so it's got Terrence Blanchard doing the music, Reynaldo Villalobos doing the cinematography. It's a beautiful movie, actually, for 2000. And also, it's one of the few movies from that year that made a decent amount of money, directed by a woman, Gina Prince Blythewood, who did Secret Life of Bees, and then went on to do Beyond the Lights in 2014, which got a lot of acclaim. So, like, I think this is a forgotten gem, TBH.
It seems totally forgotten because I don't remember this movie at all until I saw this list. I was like, oh, we have to do this weekend.
Yeah.
What's she up to? She hasn't done anything recently, has she?
Not since Beyond the Lights, no. But yeah, I think that this is a movie that you should be able to still make money nowadays, but I don't know. It's like, I think the cool thing about this movie, and I mean, we were talking about how like Spike Lee is always, taking people's shit and being like, no, fuck you. I can make the shit that you think I can't make, when he made Inside Man. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think he's doing something kind of here. Like, I feel like nowadays, as long ago, 20 years ago now, 2000 was, I feel like they might do like more of an urban audience play,
I can see that.
Like this.
Hyper focused marketing. Yeah.
Right. Whereas this was just like, it was a crowd pleaser
General
for all sectors. Yeah.
Yeah. So Love and Basketball, maybe we'll get a sequel to that one day. Number 3, Rules of Engagement, $8 million this weekend, back in 2000. This one kind of feels like one of those mid-grade genre thrillers. And I believe it's military based, isn't it? Yeah, of course. Who's Samuel L. Jackson, right?
Yeah.
Tommy Lee Jones. I think I saw this in the movie theater. Not very good. Not very good at all.
No.
Actually kind of a big flop too. Production budget was $60 million. Only did 1.2 times that worldwide. And also you could see $61 million here domestically, only $10 million internationally. You would never make a movie for $60 million that did not have a decent international box office now. It just does not happen. It's got to play somewhere else as well as the US and Canada, and that was not the case with this one.
Well, but this was also William Friedkin, so I think that studio was just like, yeah, do what you want, sir. I mean, he still had a pretty good amount of pull in the 2000, I think. And it's also Paramount. I feel like Paramount was putting out a ton of these mid-grade stuff, even into like the mid-aughts.
Yeah.
Where it's like...
Oh, totally. Yeah. This was definitely one of those things where they just like, we'll put it out there and see what happens. It has a kind of prestige to it.
Yeah.
That's completely faded.
Yeah.
Totally faded. So I don't think we'd see any of these movies nowadays. Especially 28 Days, number 4 on the list, $7.3 million. I have seen scenes from this so many times because I always think it's 28 Days Later on like cable channels. So I'll put it on. I'm like, Sandra Bullock, you're the worst. This is a film about an addict rehab. Sandra Bullock is the lead. Have you seen any of this movie?
No. I remember it played at the competing theater that I worked at in high school, and I had no reason. Like, I don't want to see Sandra Bullock get sober. That doesn't interest me, especially as a 16-year-old.
It's not a fun movie. $37 million domestic, adjusted to 62, but a massive production budget on this, $43 million. How do you justify
no.
that. Only did 1.4x that worldwide. This thing definitely lost a sizable amount of cash. And again, I just don't think you make stuff like this anymore. There's no international audience for it. Therefore, you can't spend more than $20 million to make something like it. It's a Blumhouse bet nowadays.
Right.
They're not going to take a bet on some movie like this. And I don't know. It's kind of sad. You don't see a lot of adult dramas like this. It's an okay movie. It's not like trash, but like, where's the middling rom-coms and romance movies and adult dramas?
It is weird for an April release too. Like this seems like more like a fall movie, where maybe they were even going to try to push
Easter Redemption, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
Last on the Time Machine list is Keeping the Faith from Walt Disney. Came out April 2000. It did $7.2 million on this weekend. This is a really strange one. Ben Stiller,
gosh.
Edward Norton, Jenna Elfman. I believe there's he's a priest, right? Who's a priest? Is it Edward Norton? I can't remember.
Edward Norton. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about this movie.
Yeah, right. Totally. You see I know what I see. I see the Blockbuster movie box is
Yep.
what I see in my head. I'm like, oh, that looks terrible as like an 18-year-old.
Directed by Ed Norton.
Real? Wait a second. I thought Motherless Brooklyn was his debut.
No, this was his debut. Motherless Brooklyn was his 20 years in the making sophomore effort.
Oh no, he did other films. Thanks for. Oh no, just a producer, I guess. Yeah, this is it, huh? Keeping the Faith. So this one did. Let's see what it did. I can't even see what it is. 7.2 million. And then, how did Walt Disney put this out? Is it like a Weinstein release or something?
Spyglass Entertainment. Remember them? It's Touchstone and Spyglass.
Oh yeah, okay, interesting. $8 million opening weekend, closed out at 62 adjusted, but again, $30 billion to make this thing, only 1.6 that production budget, so definitely a loss for the studios. And also, I just think looked like an awful film. And who was this playing to?
Yeah. Well, I mean, same thing with Motherless Brooklyn, right? It's just Ed Norton with his weird passion projects.
And apparently he's not a very nice person from what I hear.
Yeah,
he does not have a good reputation in the industry. Apparently he's very like domineering and kind of a dick. But that's it. Okay, so that's Time Machine, folks. Any lessons to learn from our Time Machine journey?
No, what was the question you asked me at the top of this? Cultural value.
Yeah, so that's the thing that I'm like, the Time Machine episodes is sort of like, okay, it makes this fun and money, but I kind of want to like think about like these terms in the movies in terms of like cultural relevance.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at a lot of these, and I'm looking at all of them. I don't see many that I would say are culturally relevant.
Furious 7 is probably the most.
Yeah, probably Furious 7.
That's
because
so
a lot
sad.
of these are just forgotten. They're just thrown out to make cash, and they're not going to be remembered, and they're not going to be. And this kind of like makes me think about like I'm watching a lot of old movies, and like you think of like all these movies that came out in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s that are all just gone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these are all going to be gone films. Maybe if they're lucky, some critic will be like you with Love and Basketball,
Right.
will talk about it and like get someone younger to check it out, and all of a sudden it has like a cultural cachet. And comes back, that's their only hope. Otherwise, they're all DOA. They're gone and buried, which is sad because you think when these movies came out, all the release and all the millions of dollars they spent to market them, and all the people that saw it, and then it's just this lost memory that nobody has anymore.
I know.
Really, the tragedy of the box office, folks, here on a Sunday night.
Well, I mean, who's holding up in an empty building in Las Vegas making Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 thinking they're going to make a mark on their legacy with it? It's just a job. It really
Yeah, and this kind of proves it. These are products. That's why I call them products, because they're entertainment products. You go, you laugh, you escape. Not many of them have a lot of artistic merit or cultural value to them, for better or for worse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's it, folks. That's all I got. Chris, Chris, you take us out.
Okay, thanks for listening, everybody. This was quite a blast, as always. I'm looking forward to it every week. Thanks for having me on, Dan. I think that next week we'll have more of the Deadline most profitable list, talk about some more release dates, and continue with our Time Machine journey as we await the return of the box office, as crumbling as it may seem to be before our eyes.
Take care, guys. Bye.